I mean, it's really just Kimberly and Justice, no Ray today.
It
But
it, it really kind of is, but
yeah,
man, I love that intro so much.
let me
Great
tell you
job.
when I did that week of the Zach and Ray show, like, I missed intros and like I need something to pump
Yeah,
me up and get me ready. I could do
yeah.
the Ray dance, and I'm
There
getting
you
better
go.
at that. I'm getting
Right.
better at the Ray dance. Uh,
Yeah, that was awesome. How are you, Justice? It's
I
time to
am.
talk electric.
That's right. That's right. The last quarter of the Ray and Zach show was all about electric. So wish they had tossed over to us so we could talk about it. But yeah,
Yep,
they actually talked about the MachE, which just got a up to $4,000 price cut last night, on
last night.
depending on the models. Yeah. So that was good. But according to Ray, and I had not seen this statistic and I have not had time to look it up, Ford says they're losing $60,000 per Mach-E. That number seems just way too, like they have to be throwing R&D into that number.
Prob
It can't
Yeah,
cost that much to make that. So they have to be throwing R&D into that number, which can't you kind of always say that about first year model runs of vehicles?
can
'Cause that's
you?
I don't know, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting number. I wanna dig into that. Maybe we'll talk about that on Friday with Justin because those sounds like some numbers that he could get into.
Yeah.
It Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I go 60,000 Mach-E if you include the factory building costs. Yeah, like it can't cost that much to build the vehicle, and Tesla is selling at the same price point, making a $9,000 profit. So that doesn't
How's
really
that
make a lot of
working?
sense. Yeah.
And Justice, I wanted to ask you, from everything that I'm seeing, it looks like the cost of materials are coming down. Is that
Yeah.
accurate? Yeah,
Yeah,
so the
so over the course of the last year, but really if you look at the 5-year timetable or tables either on costs of minerals and mining and
yeah,
battery costs and everything is going down. Lithium prices have just been in free fall for a while now.
right.
Yeah. So everything is getting cheaper, as that guy to your left there had said it would. Yeah.
He's always
Other
giving me the
side.
side
Yeah.
eye,
Yeah. I
Justice.
know.
He's always giving me the side eye. I mean, he's nice and everything, but he's got that look on his face all the time, and sometimes I just wanna, smack it off of him, but
You and a lot of people, Kimberly,
yeah,
you and a
yeah,
lot of people would like to do that. But as he said a long time ago, as production ramps up, things get cheaper. That's just the way the economy of scale works.
mhm.
He didn't invent that; he just pointed it out. Obviously, we've known that for a long time. So yeah, things are getting a lot cheaper. As I think Learning Fast just said here too, I was going to bring up that the Tesla just relaunched the long range all wheel drive Model 3. So I believe it's $47,000. So three was it 325 mile range for the all wheel drive Model 3. They've also started importing threes and Ys from China to Canada to
Interesting.
so they're helping fill that market, which I know some people don't like, but at the same time, I think they're doing that because the demand in the US is going up so much that instead of importing them over there or importing from China to America, which wouldn't make sense with the Inflation Reduction Act requirements, they'll
Mhm.
keep the US cars in the US, be able to qualify for more of the tax incentives and keep those rolling. But I know they are looking at Giga Canada down the line. So I think they're just supplementing them right now with Chinese vehicles to just to keep the demand and be able to meet in the U.S. It seems to me like they're expecting a huge uptick in the U.S.
Mhm.
So
Well, I would think so. Side note, does anybody remember whenever the first VCR came out, how expensive it was? I know my parents saved and saved and saved to buy a VCR. It was like
mhm.
$450. Um, as we get the items to manufacture and to you know what I'm saying. Electronics, as with anything, the pricing comes down
Yeah.
whenever the material costs come down as well. And of course, supply demand has everything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look, when I was a child, TVs were like $500-600 for a little bitty console. Well, I
yeah,
say little bitty. The screen was little bitty. The TV was enormous and super heavy,
yep.
inside like cabinet and everything. But they were expensive. I know. Go back to before my time. Everyone always questions like how old I am when I say stuff, but um, back on the I Love Lucy days, um, Lucy and Ricky bought Fred and Ethel a television, and it was $500.
Oh my gosh.
So we're talking
$500.
1952, and it was $500. So that's my frame of reference for the 50s. By the way, is what I can see on old I Love Lucy TV shows. That's how I know what things cost. But I look at that now and I go, my TVs didn't cost that. They're way bigger.
Right.
I get a 4K 65-inch that I got for less than $500. So,
Right.
yeah, prices come down, and it's just going to continue in that world. Um, but the question is, the headline of today's show, and we're
Yeah.
talking about Ford, losing $3 billion over whatever 5 years, whatever they're saying. Is, can some of these companies, first off, can they catch up to Tesla?
Mhm.
Secondly, can they even survive long enough to make the transition to EV? Right now, Ford is living on its ICE vehicles, right? That's where it made the money, but it's projecting to lose more money on the EV side than it's making on the ICE side. So, like, can they even, how's this transition going to work? Can they survive this? And before I have you answer, because I do want you to answer. What I had, someone was in here, said BYD is going to flood the market, and I have disputed that many times before, because BYD in China is the same price as the Tesla. It's not like they're cheaper. There's a lot of cheap, but as I've said that 3 times, the Chinese hate me because BYD just released an $11,000 EV.
Oh my god.
So just to prove me wrong, I know they watch the show and they just wanted to prove
What?
me wrong, and they released an $11,000 EV. So there could be something. I mean, with tariffs and stuff, it's not going to be there. But look, if it hits here at $25,000, that upends this market, right?
Well, let's go back to the transition like you talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
there a second ago. The transition, so going from ICE into EV. And one of the articles that you sent to me that I thought was controversial, from Clean Technica,
Mhm.
but there's a little piece in here. It says Europe and China are far ahead of the US for one simple reason: they require it. So Europe has policies in place that will hit automakers with crippling fines if they don't sell enough electric vehicles. What would happen if that got implemented here in the United States?
So
And that transition, Justice, going from ICE into EV, I think in my mind, I see manufacturers taking a big, downslope. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
I agree, and certainly we've seen that time and time again through innovation in the United States. Nobody's nobody's missing the wagon builders before cars were invented, right? No one's
Right,
like,
right,
oh,
right.
where are all the wagon jobs? Damn it.
Right,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
so like transitions happen, large companies go away,
Mhm.
uh, you know, but to your point, and we talked about this a little bit the other day, and yesterday, I was trying to hit on it a little bit. I think we got a little off topic, which was fine. That's what we do here. Um, but my point is, on these mandates, that's what California does. We used California as the example yesterday because we have more rules than China, actually. Um, but the federal government making these rules stuff and too. And the thing I think Clean Technica missed was the American mindset is not the
I
European
completely
mindset.
agree.
And when you
Completely.
tell when the government tells Americans, you have to do this, you're going to get some heels dug in, and you're going to get some people who would otherwise be open to it. People who are like, you know what, Tesla's not that bad. And then you hear, well, you have to buy EV. And now they're like, F Tesla, F you. I'm not doing that. I'm never going there. I'm never doing. So you get people digging in their heels instead of just letting the market sort of flow into that. I like the recommendations more than I like the mandates. Mandates get people to dig in their heels. And I think it hurts adoption in my mind. It hurts adoption overall. It's fine in Europe where they don't have this sort of
Mhm.
don't tell me what to do. I'm a 6-year-old going to pout and stamp my feet. And I don't mean that as negative as it sounds because I'm one of them. But
Read my tagline. Read my tagline
yeah,
there.
you're right.
Uh,
Don't make me
Justice.
do it. Yeah, the
Don't make
mandates.
me do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw this with the COVID vaccine, right? When you started saying
Oh, yeah.
you have to get it, people who would otherwise be like, hey, I get the flu shot every year because I want to stave off the flu. Some of those very people were like, I'm never getting the COVID vaccine. A lot of that was, oh, you have to get it if you want to go out. You have to get it if you want to do this. You have to get it. And people fight back against that. And I think there's a big mentality of that in the United States of just don't tell me I have to. And we
Mhm.
hear that on this show. We hear it on Ray and Zach all the time. We hear it on the main channel of don't force me to do this.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I have to buy an EV. And to me, I think that really hurts. And I think Clean Technica sort of missed that point in their article.
Mhm. I agree.
They're very pro, like, oh, you have to force these mandates to make the change. Uh,
Mhm.
and I just don't think that
It's not gonna work over here.
no,
I don't think so.
no, I do. It's yeah, as Susanna says, it shouldn't be politicized. It should be a personal preference.
Exactly.
And I think that Tesla has spoken enough to a lot of people to get, they're rivaling the Camry right now. The Model Y is almost ready set to take over the Camry as the best selling vehicle in America, not non-truck in America. Right. And they didn't do that through government mandate. They did that
Mhm.
by building cars that people want to drive and having benefits to them. You don't need to force these mandates on people.
Exactly.
To
I
me,
think that's
as a matter of fact, I think it works the opposite. Yeah.
yeah, and I believe I said that in, one of your shows that I was on several months back that I can't stand that. I don't
Yeah.
like the government or anybody, it's like religion. Don't force religion. But
Yeah.
you know what? The United States is so politically hypersensitive right now. My son and I had a great talk about CarEdge Electric and what we were going to talk about today last night. And my son is 30. One adoption to gain track cap residual. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because we know, yeah, we'll talk. So finish your sentence because we'll talk about
Yeah.
this in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So my son and I, he's almost 33, had a great talk last night about the products, the materials that it takes, and how sustainable EVs will be in the future, why he feels ICE will go away and it will be all EV. But he does question whether it will be all EV because he kind of thinks that there'll be another new technology that'll come along and be much better than EV in the future for maybe his grandchildren. But anyway, it was a really interesting take from a different generation, because there
Yeah.
were lots and lots of documents written back in the 60s by BP Oil, by Exxon, that said, hey, our projection is this, and fossil fuels are not going to last
Yep.
beyond this. So
This is at the same time your doctor was telling you smoking is good for you, though. So keep that in
Exactly.
mind.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought too.
Yeah.
They knew what was going on back then as
Hmm.
well. The cigarette companies begins with an R. They knew. So all this time we have known what's coming, and I feel like we're a little behind over here in the United States anyway.
We are behind. I know, and it's part of that is things like this. I think where the um, what's say Learning Fast says, who's forcing EVs on people? Is there no ban in any state yet? Well, yes and no, right? Because they've all announced their projections and their timelines,
Yeah, what is it
and
for California Justice, the timeline?
2035. So we're talking 12 years.
So
It's not very long, and the Biden administration has their timelines, and so
yeah.
it's not that people are being forced yet, but all we hear about in the news and all we're faced with are these are the and the news phrases it as bans when really the Biden administration so far their recommendation. Now the EPA is different. No, so the Biden administration, it was recommendations and there was no force of law under it.
Mhm.
The EPA's proposals, if they pass, will have the force of law behind them.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit different. I agree. There's no way we're going to be 100% EV by 2035. I mean, I know they're saying new vehicles, not all vehicles, but even new vehicles, um, that just doesn't seem realistic. Uh, could be wrong. Maybe everyone makes a switch early, but I have a hard time with that. Uh, hard time believing that we hit those time frames. Uh, but is it going to happen? I think it probably will. Uh, we will end up at all EV, but I'd probably not by 2035. It's just not going to happen. It's not the infrastructure is not there, which is something I wanted to talk to you about. So I want to get your take on this because what do you talk about? What's your main reason? It's infrastructure, right, Kimberly?
It
You
is
don't want to,
infrastructure.
it's infrastructure.
If I
So,
if I dr if I'm gonna drive, an EV, I wanna be in Norway.
yeah. Well, or, a lot of people are say, or California, right? Because we have the best infrastructure here. So I went on my road trip for the first time since being on the show where I pay more attention to these kinds of things.
Mhm.
Um, so it's different when you're on the show and you talk EVs all the time and you read people's questions and stuff than when I'm driving on a long road trip. I'm paying more attention to certain things. Like I've always used the a Better Route Planner app to plan my trips because the Tesla app doesn't have the customization I want. For
Right.
example, I went to Santa Cruz this last weekend on my
Mhm.
days off, and I put it in the Tesla, and it had me stopping at a charging station with 5% battery left. That's what it said. I'll arrive at the charging station with 5% battery. I am not comfortable with that.
No,
And
I
Tesla
would
does not let
that gives me
you,
heart palpitations just thinking
yeah,
about it. No
Tesla
way.
doesn't allow you to adjust that. And a Better Route Planner does. So I always tell a Better Route Planner, I want to arrive anywhere with 20% battery because I know how things go. And
Mhm.
indeed, I did get stuck in traffic along the way, uh, and detours and well, one detour on the way. And I had said I wanted to arrive at the charging station with 20% battery. I arrived with 13%. So 7% less than I said I wanted because detours and traffic. So if I
Mhm.
had gone for the Tesla's 5%,
What would
I would have
happen?
been negative 2%. I would have run
Mhm.
out of power. And as I'm thinking about that, it is not, we're not at an infrastructure, even here in California, with all of our infrastructure, and we have a ton. It's not like I can just go, oh, I'm getting low. I'm going to pull off on the next exit and go charge up. I, I don't know that there's a charging station at the next exit. I don't know if there's one in the next town. That's a really big difference when you're making those trips of okay, and even here in California, yeah, there's 3, 4 towns away on the freeway before you can get to another charging station. So it's not one of these things where you can just, okay, well, I'm getting low. I better pull off. I can't. I can't. I have to make that route, and Tesla really needs to adjust that, because that gave me range anxiety just looking at it, telling me that I'm going to arrive somewhere at 5% battery. I'm like, no, I'm just like,
Yeah.
no way would I do that.
Right. But how many people would be like you, Justice? How many
Well,
folks out there that are new to their brand new EV would be like you and stop themselves and really, really think about it? It reminds me of the why they put a tag on the hair dryer not to sit in your bathtub and use it. Like how many people would think
yeah,
about this? So that's the whole anxiety portion, and I think that one will force the other. We build more EVs, we get more EVs in here into the United States. Hopefully, the infrastructure will follow quickly. But if it's like West Virginia, you build first and then you figure out the road second.
yeah,
After you have traffic jam upon traffic jam and you can't get to what they just built. So,
yeah. I mean, and that's part of the thing. I use a uh, a better route planner app, but then I just send the map to the Tesla, so it's still on the screen. But I go to the different chargers, and I did only have to stop once on the way. I mean, Santa Cruz isn't all that far from me. It's a 3 hour drive, um, so it's not really that big a deal. But I stopped once for 15 minutes, and when I pulled into my hotel, I had 43% battery charge still, and I picked a
mhm.
hotel that had EV charging.
Uh-huh.
That was indeed one of the things that I did, and it's free charging. It's level 2, but while I'm sleeping, I don't care if it's fast charging. I just
Right,
plug it in
right.
at night, and that was that. And I didn't have to worry about that the whole rest of the trip. I left the hotel on Monday to come home, and I had 95% battery because I set it up because I was on the road trip.
Mhm.
Then I stopped once at the Jelly Belly factory, actually, which
Oh,
also
I
had
love
free.
Jelly Bellies.
Yeah, I did the Jelly Belly tour, and they had free charging too, so I didn't even have to end up at a Tesla charger there. So that was good, but I had my first real experience thinking of the show, looking at that, going, look, you can't let me hit somewhere at 5% because I don't know, like, if there is traffic, if there's, I'm speeding on the highway to get there, which I do on those mountain roads because I'm finally in a car that can take the corners on those, and I
Uh-huh.
drive way too fast
Uh-huh.
to do that because it's fun.
Yep.
But I run down my battery faster, just like you would on your, decrease your MPG or on an ICE vehicle. Uh, but I can't just pull over at the next stop. Like, I have to plan it. So
Right.
that really bothered me in that weather, or as John says, yeah, traffic or bad weather. Yeah, if it was cold. I mean, I'm in
Mhm.
California, so cold is relative, but uh, but yeah, if it was cold, that would have been a problem too. I would
See,
have had even less, and I don't think Tesla does a good job of taking in those things into account all the time on their maps.
that's interesting because this is what I talked about in the last show or the show
Yeah.
before, I can't remember, was, the whole planning of it. And I think, well, Susanna said it, best here, infrastructure and education.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I love the whole idea of an EV and the hum of it and the comfort. But man, I need YouTube videos. I need education. I don't want a big book to read. I need you, Justice, to tell me,
Well,
okay, Kimberly, this is what you need to do. Make sure you plan this. Tesla's going to tell you have
yeah.
7%, and these things I need the education on it to watch.
Why?
These are things I need to watch out for.
And that's the problem, right? Is that where the dealers aren't educated, especially if you're buying used, and that's where the EV adoption comes in, right? In used, like, I bought a used Model 3. My dealer knew diddly crap about the car. The story I shared with the people who bought the Model S from 3 blocks away, the dealer didn't even have a way to charge it. They sold the car to them with 1 or 3% battery. It's 3% battery, and they sold them the car, and they drove off with that. I'm like, what do you like? How do you sell them a car like that? Like,
Right.
and then they can't. It could take a day or two to connect your app to the Tesla app, to connect your car to the Tesla app, and you
Mhm.
can't charge until it's connected at a Tesla charging station. So that's why they had the problem when they rolled in there. They couldn't charge the vehicle because it wasn't tied into their app yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, I need that education.
Yeah,
I really
education
do.
is a huge thing in this. So Susanna, my battery health is 98%. So I've only lost 2%. Uh,
Excellent.
so it's a 3-year-old car lost 2%. I know the average Tesla loses 12% at 200,000 miles, which is when the average car in America gets scrapped. Is
Mhm.
200,000 miles. They say that you won't need to replace it until you have a 30% degradation. So when you're at 70%. So also, do you know, Kimberly, what the average mileage of a car in Europe gets scrapped at? It's 200,000 in the US.
400,000.
See, so you went way above what I would have said, but I would have gone the same direction. It's 150,000. It's
What?
less than America,
You're
and this
kidding.
just blew my
It's
mind when I saw it. I'm like, "What?"
yeah,
And by
well,
quite a lot, like 50,000 miles. And like, what? I don't understand. I mean, I've seen the French vehicles, so I get you're not going to get 200,000 out of those little one,
yeah,
like the
yeah,
Renault, and
right.
but I had no clue that it was that much less. But it was interesting. But
That is
yeah,
interesting, and do you think that's part of mindset as well? Because over here, we're like, 150,000, oh my gosh, you just got it broke in, you know?
yeah, I know. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I've seen people who may or may not be on the chat right now who have said sort of ridiculous things like, 300,000 miles. I just have
Oh,
to change
yeah.
my oil and it's going to keep going.
It's gonna
I
be
know it was
fine.
hyperbole and like it
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
half a joke, but yeah, that is sort of our mindset of like, yeah, it's gonna keep going. And, realistically, of course, not many vehicles are going to hit 300,000 miles, but definitely we say, 100, 150. That thing better keep going. Like we're not
So
at the point of like we're going to scrap this. Like, no, I need it
right.
to keep going. I see 120,000 plus mile vehicles every single day on deals that we look at.
Uh-huh. Oh my
Every
gosh.
single day. Like
Oh my
that's
gosh,
just
yeah.
the and in Europe that thing would almost be time to be scrapped. Like that's crazy to me.
Yeah. So here's a question on that $11,000 car that you told me about at the beginning of the show in China. That to me sounds like a throwaway car.
Yeah, and I
It's
think
like,
somebody here said that too. Yeah,
is that a
I
throwaway?
you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't, yeah, because a lot of the Asian countries do have the disposable car that's just not going to last all that long, but it's dirt cheap.
Uh-huh.
So look, if you have to get a new car every 5 years, but they cost $11,000, and whatever, you just
Yeah,
dispose of
exactly.
that and get a new one. I don't, I'm not.
And hopefully they take the old one, excuse me, and they, recycle.
Yeah, they
I hope they
recycle as much
recycle.
of that, but I don't know how that works over there because I don't live there. But yeah, I mean, it seems to make the most sense that that's the way that goes. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like I said, you wouldn't find it for 11,000 in America, no matter what.
Oh my
Uh,
god, you can't find
with
what can you
imports,
find for 11,000? What's out there, you guys, for $11,000?
over 150,000 mile vehicle. That's what I can tell you that right now. I've looked at like 6 of them yesterday alone that were
Wow.
under $10,000 from several members, but they were all well over 150,000 miles. And you just
Yeah.
go, and you ask like, hey, why are you looking at this? Well, that's all I can afford. Okay, that's fair. So
Uh-huh.
let's dig in and look at these, because there's a large segment out there that need an under $10,000 car,
Yes.
and
Oh my
it is
gosh,
hard
yeah.
to find good quality, and you're not going to find an EV. So that sucks.
Yeah.
I think, um, although most of us live in multifamily dwellings, and you're not going to be able to charge here anyway. So maybe that's good right now. I mean, that's something that needs to change big time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. How much so what's going to happen? I always want to know the future and I always wish I had a crystal ball. What's going to happen, Justice, with the pricing of EVs?
Well, I
16K.
mean,
Yeah, true.
I think you're gonna see a lot more, price reductions here and there from Tesla. They went back up $290 uh, night before last,
Mhm.
when they reintroduced the long range dual motor Model 3. But I think you'll see some fluctuations there. And right now, I think the next thing where we're looking for, I mean, EV market wise, we're looking at the Cybertruck, which is going to change the way EVs are built, and the general architecture with 48-volt batteries and the gigapresses and the pressed motors now, everything. So that's going to change the way EVs are built. But then, end of next year is what Elon says. So I guess that would be end of 2026 in real person time. We'll see, the whatever Tesla calls what we're all calling the Model 2.
Mhm.
The They're saying the $25,000 EV. So, but probably still under 30 even then, built in Mexico. And that changes the industry a lot. The
It sure
more
does.
sub $30,000 EVs,
Yes.
and then it changes it both immediately and 5 years after, right when they start hitting the used market, and
Yeah.
they were new at 20, new at 30,000, let's call it.
Yep.
So now they're used at like 18 and 19, 15, 16, somewhere in there. Now that kind of changes the market. So hopefully by then we're starting to see some of this infrastructure come online a lot more.
Mhm.
But the infrastructure is, as we've talked about so many times. I'm in California, and I still have this struggle with the infrastructure. I don't really struggle with it, but it is in my mind of, okay, if something happens and I get stuck in traffic for an hour on the five, going up to the Grapevine, well, there's no charging station within 20 miles of the Grapevine, which is a, like, 90-degree incline there,
Right.
that you have to get up. So what am I supposed to do? Like, I better know to charge up fully before I get there, because
Mhm.
yes, I'll recoup a lot of that on the other side with regenerative braking, but
Right.
I still have to expend a lot of that energy in the first place. Uh,
Mhm.
so, even here, I have to think about that. And you're not California, for better and worse. I know you're happy about that in most cases, but your infrastructure is nowhere near
Not
California.
not even a centimeter close.
No.
And everywhere I go, I'm going up a mountain and back down. So, like you just said, the regenerative braking system hopefully would kick in, and but I would still have the anxiety, the range anxiety. And the other thing here is that you don't, just to go to the store, to the grocery store, it's not a minute away. It's a half an hour away,
Yeah.
no matter what you do. So you better have charging in your home.
Yep.
Um, definitely for sure.
Yeah, I would
But
think multifamily charging in your area is almost impossible because you don't have the external places to go like I do. Like I said, I had the hotel. I went over to a Whole Foods and picked up some stuff, and I charged while I was there. And then, I went to the Jelly Belly factory. They had a whole bunch of free chargers, and so, I have the infrastructure where I can just sort of stop at places. I movie theater all the time, and it's free. It's level
you know
two, but
what's funny? We have a outlets place here in Maryland because I'm right across the bridge from Maryland, and there's one of the outlet places. They've got like 20 chargers there. Only a few of them work. This I know. I had to check that out. Only a few of them work. They are Tesla. Um, there are very few stores open at this at this giant outlet center anymore. So I every time I drive past there, I'll see a couple of people just hanging out, talking to each other while they're all charging their cars because there aren't very many stores
yeah.
open.
Well,
where those chargers are, but they're on a major highway on 70 and 81 right there where they cross.
well, I will tell you the Tesla supercharger station I did stop at, and it was in Fremont actually. Um, I drove Ziggy by where she was born just to see the factory.
Aw,
Um,
Ziggy.
and then, but the supercharger I did stop at was in a strip mall, um,
Uh-huh.
and it was behind everything, Kimberly.
No.
It was behind everything. I'm like, at night, this does not be somewhere I would want to be.
Justice,
Uh,
why? Can I
and
ask you why? Who planned that? Who said, "Hey, I know where we can put these. How about back in the back?" Who said
yeah,
that?
I mean, it makes sense from a logistical point for the strip mall, and who's going to park back there otherwise? You're not taking up anyone's parking spot with the EVs, and they have to charge for a while. And then they had all the Tesla battery packs stacked up back there, huge packs. And then, every space was filled. Everyone was charging. There was, 12 spaces there. They were all filled both times I went. But yeah, it was in the back of the mall. And I thought about you again. And like, yeah, it's fine during the day and everybody's here. But at night, if there was nobody at the strip mall and I was you, I don't think I'd pull in there to charge up. But I also likely wouldn't have a choice,
Yeah, see?
right? Because I
That's the
can't
thing.
just go.
Yep.
It's not like I can just go across the street to a better one. There's
Right.
not.
Right. Or a better well-lit
Yeah.
one
Over. Yeah.
that's not
Better.
in
But
the
yeah, that's what I
back
mean.
of
Well lit.
something. It's more well lit and yeah. We've got such a long way to go. And I really feel like there's a big disconnect between the manufacturers and the infrastructure, the planning people. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a huge disconnect, but in my mind, it's a much bigger picture. We don't It's like I always tell you about warranties that come from the manufacturers. Manufacturers don't give you a warranty with your brand new car out of the goodness of their hearts.
What?
That's not how that works, Justice. No, it's not out of the goodness of the heart. Everything is born by money and greed and corporations, and you scratch my back and I scratch your back, which I think may give we Americans that feeling of don't tell me what I have to do or what I'm going to do because it's all about money and
Yeah.
over here. So,
It is. And BTVS, yeah, you stop having range anxiety when you learn how your car responds, what to expect. That is true.
okay, so you got
That
to get to
that
know
yes,
your
yeah,
EV.
that is true. Like I really don't have range anxiety much. I had only thought of this in that when I put it in the Tesla map, it was getting me there at 5%. But I know how my car responds, and I
Okay.
know what California traffic is. That's why I didn't do that. And I went,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not going to do that. So I didn't have any anxiety on my trip whatsoever. For me, I was just thinking of the stuff that you and I and Ray and I talk about all the time
Yeah.
on this kind of stuff. And I thought, and as I was driving by where I was supposed to have pulled off according to Tesla, I thought, I never would have made it here. This would not have made it. I had already charged up by that point, but
Yeah.
it had occurred to me. I'm like, there's no way I would have made it here. What would I have done? Well, I would have to call Tesla, who would have towed me, and blah 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 blah. And I wouldn't want to do all of that. So
That's
so
a really good point though, isn't it? Like, you gotta know and
yeah,
everybody gets to know their vehicle, everybody
yeah.
does. So that's a very good point. You gotta get to know your EV and what to expect and plan accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, once you know your vehicles, range anxiety falls off. I belong to several Tesla forums on social media, and I hear this question from new owners all the time. When does the range anxiety stop? Like, I just bought it last week, and I'm always afraid I'm gonna, it's like, well, just give it a couple weeks, and it'll drop off because you know your car.
I wonder
As
if they
I
have
as I say all the time in Tesla, make sure you're looking at battery percentage and not mileage.
I wonder if they have range anxiety forums and support groups. I would join
Well,
one of those.
they need one.
Yeah,
But,
I would I would
it is a
join.
thing that when you first get it, because it's new, and I tell people all the time, how much did you look at your mileage in your ICE vehicle? How much do you monitor that? You don't. It's you get anxiety because all of a sudden you're monitoring something you've never monitored before.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you never look in your ICE vehicle and go, "Oh, I have 30 miles left. I
Well, I
better
mean, some
go
of
get."
us do, Justice.
I
Some of
never.
us
Okay,
do.
I just look at the the gas gauge, and but I'm also not one outside of my 20s to run it down to empty. Like I
No,
never
me
see the
either.
gas light on.
Yeah,
So
no.
ditto in my EV. I never go below 10%. Like nope, I hit that and I'm like no, I need to charge up again. Like
Yeah,
I just don't want that risk or of anything happening. And as John said, the cold will play a big portion on that. So
yep.
in the winter, even here in the winters when it's 31, 29 degrees overnight, that hurts my battery and hurts my range. So
In the
something,
winter when it's like 30 degree oh my
yeah,
god. I know you
yeah.
were freezing last week. Didn't it get cold last week? Like, I don't know, 60 or something, and you were like, "Oh my god, it's so
Well,
cold."
when I was on the beach in Santa Cruz, it was 55 degrees, and
Ah!
I do think all the time to myself, I think of myself as Boston still, not Californian, even though I've been here
Uh-huh.
for well over 30 years. Um, I
Just
always think of myself, I'm still Boston, I'm still Boston. And then I'm walking on the beach and I have two sweatshirts on because I'm cold and I'm still shivering. And I look at my phone and like 55 degrees. I'm like, I'm not Boston anymore.
No,
That's
you
kind of
are
going out of
not.
me. That's gone out of
No,
me. My family is ashamed of me. But I
you
was
indeed are
freezing
not.
cold at 55. Yes, that was too cold for me. So
Ah,
I guess
Justice.
I'm just California, and I just admit it now. It just is what it is. Uh,
Well,
so Kimberly, we have killed our 45 minutes. Um,
that went pretty quick. That went pretty
yeah,
quick.
yeah,
I would like to see better infrastructure and then bring on more EVs, and I'll be ready then.
yeah. So Suzanne has a quick question. What happens if and when you go to 1, 2, or even 0%? Just like your car, your ICE vehicle, when you get to empty and you know it's completely empty and your lights on and everything, you still have a few more miles. Yeah, you do too. You have that in your EV too. The
Yeah,
you have a few miles, like 2 3
2.
miles, not like 30. So don't be stupid and run it to zero and just think, I'll charge tomorrow. No, you're an idiot. Don't do that. I've said this all the time. People talk about EVs running out of power. Those people you see on the side of the road carrying a gas can, EVs don't solve stupid. They don't solve that problem. So you're still going to have that.
You would get
Only
that
there's no
face
gas
from
can anymore.
Elon. Yeah, he'd be looking at you like that, like, shouldn't have done that."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to ignore a lot of warnings in an EV to hit below zero and die on the side of the road. That's you just do. So there's built-in protections. If it ever does go completely to zero, by the way, and die out completely,
Yeah.
you have a brick. You can't do anything. You can't charge the vehicle anymore. So don't do that. So
Yeah,
that's
so what
something people
happens? So
don't
they
know.
gotta come and tow you, right? They come and tow you, and then what happens? How
Well,
do
so
you get
if you've truly like, and this can barely happen because they have safeguards in place to stop it from happening. But like if
Uh-huh,
a safeguard fails, and it has happened out there in the world where the safeguard has failed, and you ran that extra power out,
uh-huh.
um, yeah, you're done. The vehicle's done. You have a giant paperweight because
Wow.
you can't open the door. You mean even if you broke off the door, you can't charge it because you need the battery management system to be working to charge it. So
Holy
if you're
hell.
under warranty, I don't know how that works if you're under warranty
Yeah,
because
I
that
don't
is
know. It's
gross
kind of
neglect. Yeah,
negligence. Yeah.
it's gross neglect. It's not. So again, there's there's a million different like safety things in there that really prevent that from happening. But just like I had a tow truck at a Tesla station here locally that had pulled in and they were digging into the back seat, and I asked the guy, I said, did you run out of power? He said, no, my 12-volt battery died. So like your car battery, you can't
Yeah.
start a Tesla if your 12-volt doesn't work,
Right.
just like
Right.
your regular vehicle. So,
Yes. But I
he was,
can get a jump. I can get a
he,
jump. Can you get a
yeah,
jump in a Tesla?
technically, but you really shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, you can technically, but the 12 volts under the back seat, so it's
Okay.
a little harder.
Yeah.
Um,
Of course, they wouldn't make that easy. No.
no, because you're not, don't do that. But in this case, he had a full battery and his 12-volt died, and he had to call the tow truck out to come, and they got a new battery and stuff and for him. And I talked to him, and Tesla paid for the 12-volt battery and the tow truck and everything.
Hmm.
So that was fun. That was all fine. But there are things like on every vehicle that you got to think about, and you can have all the safety protocols you want, but every vehicle is going to have a limit to where you break it.
Yep.
So
Yep. Don't get into the bathtub with your hair dryer on.
yeah, yeah. And Friday I'll have another story I was going to share here, but we're already so far over our time.
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
why you should never leave your phone in your Tesla.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, then
Uh,
everybody be sure to be here on Friday. That sounds
yeah,
really interesting.
we'll talk about that with Ray and Justin. I have a cautionary tale for people, and to set your drive pin to drive on your Tesla. Set your pin to drive. Very important. So we'll
Okay.
see
Well,
everyone back here
everybody,
on
yeah.
We'll see everyone on Cinco de Mayo. In the meantime, may the 4th be with you. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having
Thank
me.